I know you had exams, but did you go through any of our slides or whatever we have done earlier? Anyone? If there are any doubts, please post them in the chat box so that we can look into them after our lecture. This is the last part of your subtopic of governance. Inclusive and exclusive governance. Now, when we talk about governance, we have seen that it is the principle on which the government takes action. So the process by which the governance is taking place can be divided into two categories. First one is inclusive governance and second one is exclusive governance. Does anyone know about inclusive or exclusive governance, or what do you think it means? Anyone? Yes, anyone wants to answer? What do you think inclusive governance means or exclusive governance means? Okay. So inclusive governance is mostly type of governance where the government gives equal rights and gives equal opportunities to all the citizens in that state. So while governing the state, they give certain freedoms which are equally applicable to all the citizens. Secondly, it is based upon the principle of universality and is based upon non-discrimination. So first, it is giving freedom. Second, it is universally applicable. That is, all subjects are going to have equal rights. And next, it is non-discriminatory in nature. Now, while doing so, we all are aware that since the earlier times before the current state was in force, there were certain disadvantaged groups in the society because of various social, economic, and political reasons. And hence, this inclusive kind of governance is going to take targeted action to uplift the disadvantaged groups in the society. So, can you relate these three things? Universal freedom first, second, equality, and targeted affirmative action by state to our constitution. Do you think that we have anything related to inclusive governance in our constitution? Can anyone answer? How will you connect it with your Indian constitution? Yes, please answer. Yes, does our constitution talk about universal freedom, or does it talk about freedoms? Minority communities still suffer in spite having freedom of movement and speech. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, you can write it on the in the chat box, no problem. But please answer. Do we have in universal freedom, or is it subject to only one class or caste of the society? See, whatever you are going to learn anywhere, you have to relate it back to the constitution so that you can check whether we have a positive inclusive governance or not. And why do we need to have inclusive governance? See, when I talk about inclusive governance, it means that while governing the people, the state is going to include them irrespective of their status in the society. It may be any kind of status. It can be a social status, political status, or economic status. I am not going to talk about. So the state is saying that everyone is equal. Everyone is equal before the law. So where do you find this kind of wording in the constitution? Do we discriminate on the basis of any kind of classification? Article 14, right? Article 14 talks about universal right to equality, and it talks about, for that matter, the entire part 3 of the Indian Constitution talks about rights, fundamental rights to be bestowed over all the citizens, irrespective of gender, caste, race, any kind of classification which might be there before, which might have existed before. Correct. Equality before law and equal protection of law. So, equality is there in our Indian Constitution. Now, when we talk about the freedoms, are they available to everyone, all the citizens? Article 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. These 5 talk about equality. What does 19 talk about? It talks about various freedoms which are there, and they are applicable to everyone. 21, right to life, which is there, which has more ambit or is applicable to a greater number because it is applicable to not only the citizens of India but also those who are within the territory of India, right? So even refugees and foreigners are covered under Article 21, that is right to life and liberty. Now, when I talk about targeted affirmative action, we all are aware that in the earlier times there were certain sections of the society which were not given proper, it can be in the sphere of economic where they were bound to do certain kind of jobs which were not economically beneficial. Socially, they were not allowed, say, there was untouchable, the practice of untouchability was there. There were certain communities which were not at all taken into consideration as citizens of the state. There, when we talk about education, they were not allowed to take education. So, in all the three spheres, politically, they were not right. So, in all the three spheres which we were talking about governance last time, political, economic, and social, they were backward classes. We classify them now as backward classes. So, when I am talking about universal freedom and right to equality, when we want to have equality in the society, we need to give them a little bit of push by giving an unequal treatment in a positive way. Equality will prevail only when the unequals are treated unequally positively. So, affirmative action by the state to uplift the status of the disadvantaged group in the society. I hope you have understood this. So when I talk about any right relating to education, when I talk about uh, equal protection of law, giving women, children, and backward classes a little more advantage by giving them legal aid, or it might be in case of any kind of reservations which are there in education, employment, in order to uplift the status economically and socially, right? So all this is nothing but counted as affirmative action by the state. Reservations are affirmative actions by the state. Now, what do you mean by exclusive governance? Now, exclusive governance is where the state itself is going to withhold rights and entitlements and is not going to give equal opportunity to all. It is going to classify the subjects and then regulate it. So you will have, when you classify, you deliberately discriminate in the society or that state. So your legislation is also going to be discriminatory legislation. Now, because there is discrimination at the state level itself, you will see that in that particular state, it gives a very negative impact and negative boost to certain stereotypes or prejudices in the society. So, what happens is, for example, if the state is not going to give women the right to vote or women the right to work, in that case, it is going to give a boost to the negative stereotype that women are not supposed to go out, they are not supposed to work, they should not be educated. Can you give me an example where such situations are still prevailing, or any kind of governance which is happening in this manner? Any country you can name? Of course, we have a few countries where deliberative discriminatory legislations are there. Anyone? Bihar, I doubt we can say that because it is part of India and at the central level we are pro equality. Afghanistan, yes. North Korea has lot of restrictions, yes. Afghanistan, yes, for sure. Women were not allowed. Iraq, to an extent, yes. Any other? Can anyone elaborate on China? Chinese discriminatory is more. It's not discriminatory, but yes, it does withhold certain rights and entitlements because it is a socialist communist country. So, yes, it has a very stringent outlook towards governance. It is not totally exclusive or inclusive governance. Yes, any other can you explain with example when we talk about Afghanistan, anyone? How you can say that it is a exclusive governance right now? Yes, anyone? No one? Okay. So what happens when you have an exclusive governance? First of all, poverty, because it is going to take care of only one part of the society, only one section of the society. So the wholesome development is not going to happen. So it will lead to poverty. There will be difference in socio-economic groups. When you have economic disparity, it is followed by social disparity and vice versa. They both are connected. These both are connected. And the third factor is also connected, that is the politics. Once you have more power, you will have more money. So then again, socio-economic and political groups are going to be formed. So what happens is this inequality, the gap between all these stratas start increasing or intensify, which brings about chaos in the state. Right? When we were doing state in the earlier lectures, we saw that why did monarchy fail? Why did aristocracy fail? This is because of the intense gap between the unequal groups in the state. Of course, revolutions have taken place because of the same reason. That is the gap between the two groups or whatever stratas which have been created because of this exclusive governance. Right? So that's the reason why we need to have a harmonious kind of structure at the state level itself so that it percolates to all the stratas. In India, I don't say that everything is gala and rosy. No. But when you have taken efforts at the central or the state level, the governance level, it starts percolating in the society to the grassroots level. Alright, if you don't make changes at the higher up, it will not, the positive impact will not percolate in the society. So that is very important. Now, reforming governance, we cannot have totally inclusive or totally exclusive kind of governance. We need to have more inclusive, but there are many challenges which we face when we are talking about inclusive governance as well. Now, so because of that, the governance approach keeps on changing. Right? It is not stable. Today it is exclusive, inclusive governance. It will keep on changing the use of the inclusiveness. I am not saying that overnight an exclusive state can become an inclusive state or inclusive state will become exclusive. No, it is not an one night change which will happen. But the degrees of exclusiveness and inclusiveness keep on changing based upon majorly two things. One is the reforms by the government. As I told you, if the positivity is there at the higher, that is the state level, it will percolate, because the state has the power. It can either bring it in a smooth fashion by just passing laws and then gradually stepwise implementation, or it can take a very staunch stance saying that no, this thing is banned, it is banned. Okay, so a strict approach or a lenient approach can be taken by the government. Next is the actions of the citizens, which is very, very important again. Because if we as citizens agree to a law, then it is going to be very smooth for the government to implement whatever they want to. It may be positive, it may be negative. But if the citizens are not ready to, what you can say, accept what the state wants to apply in the governance, then it is going to be very difficult. So it is a two-way street, one from the government side and one from the citizen side. Now, this is within the state. This was relating to the national level. Whatever happens in that particular country. But is it that it is only that we are India, so our whatever conditions which prevail in India are only dependent upon what happens in India or internal factors? The answer is no. The global factors are equally important when we talk about governance. So external shocks or internal political and economic processes are bound to make positive or negative impact on the governance. So remember, first, it is not an automatic or a fast change in any kind of governance. Second, it is a two-way street from the government side and one from the citizen side. Third, even the external, that is the international updates are going to take active part in the internal political, social, and economic process. So today, for example, today we know, all are aware that there is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, right? So is it that we are not affected? Of course we are affected. How? The prices of crude have gone up. The prices of metals are going up. So when we talk about crude and metal, we know that it is going to have a great impact on the prices in India and at the global level. Plus, it is where it is going to harm. It is going to harm our infrastructural costs. So economics is based upon that. What happens when we talk about the political parts? Politically, the world is not really, half of them are at the side of Ukraine, half of them may not be saying but are on the side of Russia. We never know, right? So geopolitics plays a very important role in the national governance as well. Dependency on the international updates is also important. So this is, in this way, the governance is going to change its principles of what is happening. And please remember, socio-economic and political, any of it changes, it has an impact on the other two factors. So what are the challenges when we talk about governance? First, violence. It may happen that, for example, today our state is an exclusive state. We are having aristocracy, so there is a small group of people who are governing the state. So what will happen is, if tomorrow we want to have democracy, which is a inclusive kind of government, we want to have democracy, of course they will have problems. And how will they suppress it? By violence, to maintain their own authority. Next is resistance. This is one, that is the state resistance to change, either by those who benefit from the status quo. That means, for example, today, if I have aristocracy, the aristocrats, the higher class, the powerful class is going to say that no, we don't want to have change because I have power. I don't, any person doesn't want to give away its power, right? Or due to inertia, the people are like lazy, they don't want any change. They think that whatever is happening in their state is fine. So that is inertia state. I don't want to, right? So resistance from both the sides. Next is when there is oppression for a very long time, right? The person starts to have a sense of inferiority. And it is so embedded or so in depth that they start losing confidence that they are more than what is their status in the current scenario. So what happens is, for example, we might have come across people that they are good, they can be better. We all understand that, but they don't have confidence in themselves. So because of that, there is no upliftment of their status quo. So that may happen when you have a suppressed class for a very long period of time, right? So there are various reasons, which examples where we will find that this sense of inferiority has excluded a large number of people from upliftment. Okay? So these were the challenges, but we all are aware that at some point of time we need to move ahead. Our society needs to grow positively. We can't go on backwards with violence. Violence is going to be there for a short period of time. We cannot live with violence for our lifetime, right? So that's the reason why there are certain driving factors which will change the outlook of the state when we talk about their governance. First, most important is education. Education is the best driver to the change. Awareness. Education brings awareness. It starts off your thinking, thought process in a right direction. Just hearing people and making your opinion one part, or reading, getting educated and making your opinion. Both of them are going to be very different. So whenever you want to make an opinion about anything, you have to see whether it is based upon what you have heard or what you have read. Reading, education, whatever opinion is there after getting educated, it's more solid, it has much more broader base. So when majority of the citizens in that state are going to be educated, you will find that that state will thrive. It will socially, economically and politically have much more better opportunities, and it will grow in a positive manner. So can you, as in the Indian constitution, you will see that education is a fundamental right. Before that, it was a directive principle as well as a fundamental duty. Whose fundamental duty? Parents' fundamental duty. Directive principle, the state was told that you have to take care that the young generation, that is children till the age of 14, should be given primary education, right? And then you have a fundamental right now. So now it has become enforceable, right? So education plays a very, very important role. Next, building awareness and urge for upliftment in the youth. This is also largely connected with education. The more aware you are about your rights, the more upliftment you will create for yourself. So, for example, if you are not aware about any of your rights in India, what will happen? You don't know anything. You don't have social media. You don't have anything. What will happen? Can anyone tell me? Maybe you're not listening to my lecture. You don't know anything. You're just sitting at home and just know whatever you see. You don't have any means of media. What will happen? Will you be aware about what is happening in the society? Yes, please answer. Anyone? Anyone? What will happen if there is no awareness? No awareness at all. Are you going to thrive, or are you going to fight back that no, this is wrong and I have a right? The answer is no, right? You are not going to protest because you don't know whether something wrong is happening to you. In order to stand up against inequality or any kind of atrocity, you need to first know that you don't deserve it, and this is wrong and this is illegal. You will only do that when you are aware about it. Now, when you have awareness, then it leads to social mobility. Now, what is social mobility? You move up and down the social strata. As you know, for example, in India, we had a caste system. Every caste, earlier in the ancient time, it was not birth based, it was only employment based. So those who were into scriptures and those who were reading the Vedas were the Brahmins. Those who were protecting the state, they were the Kshatriyas. Those who were the guilds, those who were trading, they were the Vaishnavas. And those who were doing the labor job, they were called as the Shudras. So, depending upon the employment, our society was divided. There was social mobility. The person who will grow up and then decide as to what he wants to be or whatever employment that person wants, depending upon that, the caste was allotted. So, if a Brahmin's son or son, not daughter, daughters were not allowed to work that time. So, a son who wants to go and protect the kingdom, his caste will be Kshatriya, even if he was born to a Brahmin. But later on, in the medieval times, what happened? Invasion started from the Turks, and everyone started coming in. The society became too conscious about its stratas and its social structure, and that's why it became a birth basis. When it became birthplace based, the social mobility in the caste system stopped. So the upper classes remained upper classes, lower classes became permanently lower class. And which again, what happens is, because of this immobility, you have degradation of the society. And then hence now in the inclusive kind of governance after independence, we have started with social mobility, right? Where the caste system itself is gone. Gone in the sense, nothing is based upon it. You can take up any kind of employment irrespective about your caste. So when there is social mobility, promotion of income equality. Correct? You're not bound to your job, what your father or mother is carrying out. You can always shift to something else. Your father is a doctor, you can become a lawyer. No problem. Nobody is going to stop you. So when you have social mobility, up, down, vertically, horizontally, everywhere, what happens is you will have more income equality. Till here, everything is clear. Any doubts? Please raise your hand if you have any doubt. Please. No doubts? Okay. So this was the division between the governance, that is the inclusive and the exclusive kind of governance. Now we will talk about India. Are we inclusive, totally inclusive, or are we walking towards the inclusive governance? So the answer is we are taking steps towards inclusive governance because of our earlier disadvantages. We are taking our steps towards a positive, inclusive state. So the approach of Indian governance is proactive. We are very proactive. We started off with a good constitution which lays down principles of inclusiveness, and it is not just the constitution but the later latter legislations also which have reiterated that we remain inclusive governance, not only at the constitutional level but as at the institutional levels as well. So when I talk about inclusive governance, I need to think about three parameters which need to be enhanced in order to have a inclusive governance. First one is transparency, second one is participation, and the third one is accountability. We have seen earlier what are the major factors relating to governance. Same: transparency, participation, and accountability. So landmark laws have been passed in direction to increase the transparency. How? You have the Information Technology Act. You have the Lokpal Act. Right? This is going to bring about transparency in the governance. If there is any government official who is going wrong, the ombudsman or the Lokpal, as the case may be, is having power to punish. This brings about transparency. This brings about accountability in the governance. Then we did the federal structure, the central, state, and the local bodies with Panchayat Raj. This is the foolproof structure for public participation and inclusive governance. Why? Because when more and more citizens are taking part in governance, it is nothing but inclusion of the citizens. So what all are we doing when we talk about inclusive participation? First, we have Panchayat Raj. Because of what happens is people at the grassroots level, that is the village level, are able to directly participate. That is the thing. Third thing, women have reservation. 1/3 seats. So what happens is again inclusion. Fourth, reservation for backward classes. More inclusion. So you have a group of people which is a mixture of advantaged and disadvantaged groups, where when they are going to work together, they are going to think about the entire society as whole and not going to favor any one kind of social structure or any kind of class of the society. So that is. When I talk about transparency, promotion of transparency, we did the concept of e-governance, use of social media, use of IT in the governance. What has happened because of that? We have seen it has promoted transparency and it has also increased accountability. How? Can anyone tell me? How has it increased transparency and accountability and even participation? E-governance? Anyone? No one? What is included in e-governance? The government gives you information about their governance online by their dedicated websites. Correct? Second, what does it do? All the procedures are becoming online, right? You can apply for your certifications, you can file your income tax, you can know about the government policies. So that can be done online. So that is e-governance. So participation is there. What else? If you have any queries, any kind of what you can say, you want to point out any wrongs which are there, you can always apply to the online ombudsmans which regulate the public sector, right? So this is going to increase the accountability of the government. So before moving to the conclusion, is there any other way you think that inclusive governance is there in India? I have left out 2 points over there. Can anyone tell me what did I miss when I talk about inclusive governance in India? A major act which I have missed, which helps in transparency. Anyone? Yes, RTI Act. Correct, Pallavi. So RTI Act, Right to Information Act, is one of the most important acts which has brought about transparency in the Indian governance. Correct. What else did I miss out? There is one more thing. What else? Come on, fast. There is one more policy which I have not mentioned. It is the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy, which came up in year 2012. And it aims at providing more information, that is more data related to the government. Okay, so that is going to make all the government related data to be public. It can be in any forms. Okay, for that's the reason why this under this policy we had the national e-governance plan, which was implemented for effective paperless governance at various departmental levels. Okay, so the first one who started off with this e-governance was the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, they started with the e-filing of income tax, the services which were provided for registration of corporate entities. It also talks now later on. It grew to the availability of land records at the online, and then it gradually grew to the e-courts and the e-trade portals which we have now, which are government based. The state also takes care of agricultural uh, what you can say developmental plans or any kind of registrations which need to be done online. Then they have the commercial taxes, the employment, the land records, the panchayats, the road transport, you have the railways, everything being taken up by this e-governance plan and becoming digital in nature, right? Then you have the passport authority, you have the pension authority, tracking of visas and foreigners. This also became online. So all this is divided at the three levels. One is at the central level, state level, and the integrated, that is, it is taken care by both the levels. Am I clear till here how inclusive governance is taking place in India? Yes, any doubts? I'll wait for 1 minute. Any other doubt relating to inclusive governance, not only at the Indian level but other? So can I say that inclusive governance over here means empowering the community, responsive institution, because you need institutional backing in order to bring about change, and accountability process. If you are not accountable, you are not going to work in that process. So can I say that these three factors are important when we want to talk about inclusive governance? right? No doubt still now. I'm still waiting for your responses. So can I say that inclusive governance is nothing but an democratic approach and a human right based approach? Can I sum up with inclusive governance as that democratic and human right approach? Is it correct? Good governance is of course part of it, but can I say that this approach, inclusive governance approach, is similar or it includes democratic approach and human right based approach? At least say yes or no. I think everyone is sleeping. Okay. So for conclusion, it is a right-based anti-discriminatory legislation are needed at the international and national level. Examples can be CEDAW, which improve the status of women all around the world. And at national level, we have seen RTI, Lokpal, and other, and the reservations at the constitutional level. Affirmative actions in economic, political, and education sphere. Next will be redistributive public expenditure. So, for example, we have different level of taxation in India based upon the economic status of that individual. We do not have taxation on the basis of social or political classes. We have it based upon the economic status of every individual and not class. Need for political will. So when people, that is the state, people want, the citizens want to uplift themselves, there needs to be a political will to back that upliftment. If there is no political will, nothing will happen, right? Can you give me an example where the political will may be absent, but the people want to grow and uplift themselves? All right. So coherent and cross-sectional approach is needed for development of the entire system. So now tell me, is there any doubt till now in inclusive or exclusive? Can we switch on our cameras for a bit? Because today's session was very interactive. Let me see how many of you are sleeping or awake. Yeah, please. How many are awake? 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 people are awake out of 90. 7. That's it.
Students, switch on your camera.
So on an average, only 5 to 7 people are awake, others are sleeping. Very bad. Okay, anyone wants to add about any topic in this course? Because I have finished the syllabus today. Any doubts you have? No doubts? No? Have you understood everything? So tomorrow can we have a small test? You have understood everything, right? So can we have a test tomorrow? Yes, no, what? No. Okay, we will do one thing. We will discuss the question bank so that when you have exam soon, you will be in a better position to answer, right? That will be fine. A revision for the entire syllabus. So please read a little bit. If you are not going to be present for the tomorrow's lecture, please do the revision with me when it is live streamed. Fine? Even if you are not attending the lecture, that will help you a lot. So there are no doubts at all in the constitution or democracy. No, no. So what I will do is I'll start off with the revision from the first lecture, what we have done, right? So what happens is tomorrow it will not be burdened. So first thing which we did in the syllabus was democracy. We have seen how democracy has developed over a period of time. Was it the original kind of state which existed? Was it the first kind of state which existed? The answer is no. Most of the world had monarchy or aristocracy. It was the Greek states of Athens, city state, which started off with democracy first time, which did not sustain for a long period of time, but it was said to be a good governance state that time. All right. Later on, it was the British, that is the UK, United Kingdom, who started off with a proper democratic setup. We all know that they have a what do they have? Do they have constitutional monarchy or what? What kind of governance is there today in UK? Anyone can answer in the chat or they can speak. That will be very nice. What kind of government is there? No, UK doesn't have presidential. They don't have a president. They still have the queen, right?
Monarchy.
Monarchy, but is it that the queen rules everything?
Constitution, they also abide by the constitution, don't they?
Yes, they abide by the constitution, but they still want their queen. So it is a constitutional monarchy. What does it mean? Constitutional means the constitution is the basic document of their governance. But they have a monarch, that is the queen, who is a face of governance. She doesn't take decisions for the state, but she is still there. She is the what you can say decorated head of the country. So they have a constitutional monarchy based upon democratic principles. Okay. What about our USA? What kind of state is it?
Ma'am, could you please repeat the question?
What about USA? What kind of state is it? Anyone? USA? USA is a democratic country with a presidential it is a presidential democracy. Why? Because the president is powerful and has the power to take decisions. Does India have a presidential democracy? Do we have presidential democracy? Is our president so powerful to take all decisions on his own? No. Who has most power? Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers, that is the Parliament. So we have a parliamentary form of democracy. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So when we have a parliamentary form of democracy, what are the ingredients of a democratic state? What are the ingredients to have a democratic state? Do you want me to share the slides for democracy once again?
Participation of the people or the citizens.
Yes, participation of people. Yes, what else?
Elections.
Election. Yes, because of that only you will have democratic elections. Yes, what else? Participation of the public, accountability to the public. What is the basic definition? Which is the famous definition of democracy? Abraham Lincoln's definition. By the people, for the people, of the people, right? So it can be a direct democracy or a indirect democracy. Direct democracy is where people directly elect the head of the state, whereas indirect democracy is they they elect the representatives and delegate the power of election of the head to them, and then they elect. So do we have indirect or direct democracy in India? Which kind of democracy do we have? Direct or indirect? Indirect. Correct. So the list of principles will be: first, you need to have a constitution. Second, the election should be free elections. Do you pay for elections? Do you go to the booth and pay? The answer is no, right? So free elections, the government is by the consent of the people, majority rules. In an election, the person who acquires maximum votes, majority votes, will be elected. Rule of law, that means nobody is above the law. So what is the touchstone for India when we talk about rule of law? Which is the highest law of the land? The constitution, correct. Now, when we talk about it, democracy, it guarantees certain rights and freedoms which are given under Part 3 of the Constitution. In case the public, that is people, are not happy with the government, they can always pass the motion of what can we pass? How can we remove the government? By dissolution of the house, right? There needs to be political equality, freedoms. Do we have freedom of speech, which is very important in democracy? Because if that is taken away, if public opinion is taken away, it will not be good democracy, right? So we have public participation in decision making. Here, your Panchayat Raj plays a very, very important role. Then, what is the role of the opposition? Does opposition play a role in decision making? Of course, when the bills are passed, when any crucial decision needs to be taken, the opposition leader is also, yes, to pass any bill. Yes, correct. So, opposition, the right to opinion is crucial when we talk about legislative actions as well as executive actions. So, why do we prefer democracy? Can anyone tell me? And how do we see to it that democracy exists properly? Positive democracy exists. First factor, it leads in development. There is an element of decentralization which helps in taking care of the needs of people at different levels. It may be social, political, economic, or geographical needs which need to be taken care by the state. It can be taken care only if there is decentralization in the governance. It gives rise to political institutions. It gives right to trade, production, and economic activities. Social media plays a very important role, and most importantly, when we need to see to it that this kind of governance exists, we need to have independent judiciary. What do you mean by independent judiciary? How can we ensure that the judiciary is independent? Independent judiciary is where the judiciary is out of the influence of executive or legislative body. So the appointment of judges, the salary of judges is independent of executive and legislative will. Independent judiciary, for your information, is also part of the basic structure doctrine. That is, it is the basic principle of our Indian constitution, hence not amendable. So when I talk about social political conditions which are necessary for a healthy democracy, the laws which are passed should be in favor of the people, and they should be in consonance with the constitution. In the constitution, you have various fundamental rights which are broadly nothing but human rights which are established by international covenants. In that, equality, liberty of thought and process, expression, belief, movement are important. Universal franchise, adult franchise, that is the right to vote, is very, very important at various levels. What else do you think is needed for a strong democratic system? The freedom of press and association also brings about good structure, healthy structure for democracy. Social and economic conditions also play a very important role for making the foundation of democracy strong. Hence, we have the right to equality of social status, opportunities, social security, and social welfare. We also have economic equality and developmental welfare activities taken up by the state. Where are they? In part 3 as well as part 4 of the constitution, which talks about the directive principles of state policy. What do you think are the challenges before Indian democracy? What are the challenges of the Indian democracy? Poverty, yes. So you can say social, economic disparity, healthcare, okay, yes. What else? Healthcare comes with social and economic disparity. What else? Diversity. The major challenge is linguistic, cultural, and religious diversity, which we have. So we have many groups to take care of, right? Next is we are economically underdeveloped. That's the reason why it leads to, yes, caste, gender discrimination, correct. Social disparity is there. Illiteracy is there. Unemployment, shortage of public welfare means. These are the basic problems which we face when we talk about democracy. There is one more point which you are missing out. Overpopulation, yes. What else? One point which is very, very important, which is one of the biggest hurdles in smooth functioning of democracy. Yes, anyone? Unemployment, yes. There is one more which is very crucial, which every person is fed up of. Improper sex education, okay. No, I'm talking about democracy, na? I'm not talking about social aware. Corruption, right? Corruption. Corruption is the basic, one of the most important factor which is with because of which we face challenge. It slows down the decision making. Correct, Janvi. It is rampant in all spheres of life, and that's the reason why we face problem in property, health, education, commerce, industry, agriculture, and each and every pursuit of. So because of that, there is a problem. So what did we do to bring down corruption? What is the current process by which we can curb corruption? Do we have any anti-corruption law? Yes, by agencies like ED, yes. See, we don't have a universal or a wholesome law on corruption, but each and every department has certain regulations to take care of corruption. Plus, you have the RTI, you have the Lokpal and the ombudsmen which take care of this corruption. Next important factor which is an hurdle in successful democracy is casteism. As I have told you over a period of time that this has brought about the disadvantaged class in the society. So when we are developing our system, we need to take care of all stratas of the society. So reservations are there. Again, we don't like reservations, but it is a need of our society. despite of globalization and everything, castes are still being used as vote banks and other classifications or gaining power in the society. You still have khap panchayats who think that they are the best people to adjudicate matters even above the courts of the land. So that is there. Then you have regionalism, which is another factor which comes in between the development of democracy, right? As we are divided into states and we share bonding with our people who are in the state, that doesn't mean that we treat anyone else unevenly or unequally, because ultimately we are India as a whole. So regionalism doesn't have any kind of basis for classification, but yes, people still do that. The state needs to take care of this kind of regionalism which takes place. Of course, at legislative level or any other level, it is a administrative unit, and hence they need to pass laws or give provisions to that particular state. So that is totally only administrative decisions which will be based upon this, because every state has its own problems which they need to deal with, right? So at the level of citizens, there should not be any kind of regionalism, but at the state level, as an administrative unit, we need to have that. Any doubts relating to democracy? Anything else? No? So is democracy a better way of ruling the country, or do you think that there is anyone else? Any other kind which is much more better suitable? See, the best part of democracy is transparency and accountability. Unlike the other types of government, the democratic government is accountable to the people who have elected them for the needs they needs which need to be fulfilled. Another thing is, when we talk about parliamentary form of government, separate bodies are there for separate administrative or functions which the state needs to carry out. So there is always a check and balance between all the organs of the state, which enhances the accountability and transparency. So that is very, very important, rather than having giving absolute power to one or a few to rule the country. Which is the country now which has direct democracy? Can give me an answer? Can anyone give me an answer? Which country has direct democracy even now? Please answer. Switzerland has direct democracy. In US they directly elect the president, but it is not they directly elect their president, but not the other parliament. Okay. All right. So I think we will stop for the day, and tomorrow we will do the revision of the other two topics which are remaining. So your democracy, the first module revision is clear? No doubts? All right. Oh, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we call it for a day? We'll do the revision for the next two modules tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, students.
Thank you, ma'am.